Well, it's been a fun week. We have no change in the AFC. Um, should be a fun NFC championship. Too bad I got to work the overnight shift, so I won't be able to watch it. But you know, and of course, a lot of coaching news. I'm shocked we already had our first head coaching announcement this past week.
I know.
And Carolina wasted no time. We will announce who they hired in a moment. But of course, we'll begin with our takeaways. Then we'll talk the head coaching positions. Then, of course, we'll have our AFC and NFC championship game weekend picks. Man, no more Saturday games, so we're making our picks on Sunday once again. But let's not waste any time. I think I started out today, so I guess I'll get going then.
Yep.
So I'm going to begin by talking about the Chargers. Yes, I want to talk about my team, and of course, they are bringing in. There's a lot of parity here. Um, they brought in the Rams, Zach Robinson, Greg Olson, and Thomas Brown. Now, if you don't know who those guys are, of course, I believe one is the quarterback coach, if I'm not mistaken. Um, Sorry, I had an article up for that.
Well, I do know that Buffalo Joe Brady,
Yeah,
the
Joe
Bills Joe
Brady,
Brady is the quarterbacks coach for the Buffalo Bills currently.
and then the
Of
Vikings,
Greg
Jared
Olson,
Johnson.
of course, Greg Olson is Fox commentator.
Yeah.
If anybody knows about him too, former tight end.
No, that's not the right Greg Olson.
Oh, it's not.
This Greg Olson is a longtime football coach. Of course, he's never been a head coach, but he most recently was the Vegas Raiders offensive coordinator. And this year he was a senior offensive assistant for the LA Rams. He's been around. He's been a journeyman. He's worked a lot with quarterbacks. You know,
I mean, he might be able to help out. I guess. I mean, if you look at all these choices, it's interesting to see. I mean, the two best ones or at least the two best ones. I mean, of course, the Rams, this past season, didn't make playoffs at all. Came off a Super Bowl run and didn't make playoffs at all. So, I mean, it might be, something to monitor. I think the Vikings, Jared Johnson might be interesting. I don't know if he was offensive or defensive kind of uh, coach at all, but
yeah. So
Joe Brady, I just don't see him going to be an offensive coordinator right away. It might be still early.
well,
I mean,
Zach
I just see.
Robinson. So sorry, Zach Robinson's the pass game coordinator and the quarterbacks coach for the LA Rams. Jared Johnson is the quarterbacks coach, assistant quarterback coach for the Vikings. Um, Luke Stiegel is from the Tennessee Titans. He is the tight ends coach. He's also been interviewed. Assistant head coach, tight ends coach Thomas Brown for the LA Rams, and then Joe Brady, the Bills quarterback coach, rather. So that's how they stack up.
I'll say it will be surely interesting to see who they go after. I'm thinking that they're going to go after a guy that help excel the team, a team to the next level. And if that's really going to be the case, I would think you would have to look at the Rams or the Vikings, to be honest with you, because
I mean, Thomas Brown, he's not a bad option. Um, you know, I would say he's not a totally bad option here. I mean, he's been the assistant head coach for the Rams for the last couple of years. Really got promoted to that role in 2021. Of course, Jared Johnson, I don't know. I don't think I want Luke Stiegel after how the season went for the Titans. So I think I'd avoid anybody that was on the Titans staff.
Right.
You know, Zach Robinson, I think could be a good option. Quarterback coach, you know, he's also a pass game coordinator. But I think the one that stands out the most and the guy who should probably be given, you know, the position here is Greg Olson. I think, honestly, you know, he's had a lot of stints as offensive coordinator. He was part of that Raiders comeback in 2021 that led them into the playoffs despite all the controversy. And again, he was also McVay's quarterback coach in 2017. Now, you know, so
Basically, your best option to be able to develop Justin Herbert to the next level. So maybe.
mind you, that 2017 Super Bowl,
It wasn't with Matthew Stafford. It was with Jared Goff, and they got.
or 2017 season. Sorry, I'm trying to look it up to be sure I have the facts right. It's the one where the Eagles won over the Patriots, but still, you know, he did help out Jared Goff quite a bit, so I don't know. I mean, I feel like just on resume alone, I think Greg Olson's the best option, but I'm also not opposed to Zach Robinson. I mean, you know, I think those guys out of McVay's system, I think Zach Robinson out of McVay's system could be very aggressive. But I like Greg Olson for the experience because let's face it, Brandon Staley had lack of experience this past season and just he doesn't have total awareness, and I feel like Greg Olson's been in the game long enough that at the very least, if you don't hire him as offensive coordinator, you could hire him as maybe a quarterback coach slash assistant head coach.
Up to 90% of patients saw a significant improvement of their psoriasis plaques.
So,
some even saw 100%
that would
clear
be my
skin.
option. But anyway, I move on to the next point, and this one's a big one. I don't think I saw this one coming. As we go into what could be the final week for the Chiefs, what could be a week leading into the Super Bowl as well for the Chiefs. Andy Reid is rumored to be retiring at the end of the season if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl. Now, of course, Andy Reid, he's 64 years old. He's been coaching for many years. Of course, long time Philadelphia Eagles head coach before becoming the Chiefs head coach. He was also the Philadelphia Eagles vice president of football operations for the longest time. You know, I guess he wants to go out on top here. Of course, 246, 138, and 1 in his career. Only one Super Bowl. So, but Andy Reid, of course, you got like 64 years old.
Yeah, a couple different appearances for Andy Reid, but unfortunately only one Super Bowl victory, and that came against the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, he faced up against New England in, I think, the 2004 Super Bowl year. Then, of course, Super Bowl 54 and then Super Bowl 56? No, 55, right? 54 and 55.
Yeah.
Kansas City went back-to-back years. They won 54 and then they lost 55.
Yeah. So, of course, this could get interesting, though, as we go into the off season. Of course, I doubt these rumors are true.
To be honest, I will say this now. If rumors are somehow true, it makes you wonder as a fan, would you actually want to see the Chiefs win? So then you can see him retire and then them possibly not being as good as they were. But the thing is, that offense is just way too good. I think honestly, whoever comes in as the head coach, if he was to retire, would still have the same kind of success that Andy Reid would.
See,
so it's tough to tell.
But with this, of course, yes, the Chiefs will still be good, but they're going to take a step down.
Oh, they probably will. I think who could replace Andy Reid is probably Eric Bieniemy.
No, I'm sorry. I'm shutting that down right now. I've never been so adamant against you, but this one I am. I mean, let's face it, Patrick Mahomes is going to have probably quite a lot of say in who gets the head coaching position. And let's face it, he does not like Eric Bieniemy calling his plays. And then, of course, if Eric Bieniemy gets promoted to head coach, guess who gets promoted to offensive coordinator? Matt Nagy. And let's face it, do you really want those two guys calling your plays for you?
No.
I'm just saying, I don't see those two getting the position. Frankly, Steve Spagnuolo is lucky to still have a job, but he would probably be the guy at the forefront of the list. Also, Dave Taub, of course, Dave Taub is their assistant coach right now, but 60 years old as well. I'd find it hard to believe. I mean, now here's the thing. I wouldn't doubt Eric Bieniemy is going to be the top of the list, but if Patrick Mahomes has any say, and if Patrick Mahomes wants to continue having success at a high level, I would say you don't want Eric Bieniemy as your head coach.
And I don't know what to say, honestly.
Let's also face this fact. Patrick Mahomes is 27 years old.
Uh-huh.
Okay? He's got 8 or 9 more years on his deal. Okay? So he'll be 36 at that time. Andy Reid will be 73, 74. And if Mahomes plays to 40, 41, 42, whatever he decides to play till, that's going to bring Andy Reid into his late 70s. I'm not sure if you guys have seen Andy Reid, and I'm not here to fat shame or anything, but Andy Reid's not exactly a beacon of health compared to Pete Carroll or, any of those guys. Now, again, I'm not fat shaming. I'm just going to say it for what it is that, Andy Reid's looking in good health. His mind is still sharp, but is he a guy that's going to coach into his 70s? That's going to be a big question.
I mean, if the money is right and he keeps on winning, I can't see why not, but, I look at it this way. For a team that is also great of a dynasty, to have only one Super Bowl win in those 4 straight AFC Championship appearances makes you wonder. That doesn't seem all that great. I mean, yeah, I get it. You played up against San Fran, and they very well could have lost that Super Bowl too. But then you go into Tampa to face up against the Bucs. And you don't look as good against the Bucs and Brady as you did against Jimmy Garoppolo and the 49ers. But, getting back on track here, Andy Reid, I don't see him retiring even if he was to win the Super Bowl. I get it, it's rumored. I just think that it's going to stay as that. It's going to be a rumor. I just don't see him retiring. I think that he's going to stay with the Chiefs, maybe possibly another year after the season or two. But if he was to ultimately say I'm retiring after this year, I don't think I would see the Kansas City Chiefs being that same kind of dynamic team as they once were.
I feel like it's all naysayers at this point.
Unless he somehow, like, I don't know. I get it. The enemy's not the same kind of play caller as, Andy Reid. But he's at least somebody that can, still have that Andy Reid type offense with the Chiefs, which might be able to still excel in. Who knows?
Yeah. I don't think Eric Bieniemy would have any success. I mean, the other thing is, likely Matt Nagy getting promoted to offensive coordinator. If he calls the plays, I really don't like that either, because I feel like it'll take Mahomes from this level of, he's the second greatest quarterback. And yes, I said second greatest quarterback in the league right now, because let's face it, Joe Burrow has now passed him. But it would take him from that to probably 9th or 10th. Because let's face it, Eric Bieniemy and Steve Spagnuolo, Eric Bieniemy and Matt Nagy have been riding the coattails of Andy Reid their entire careers. They've never had any responsibility to this point. And even when given a slight glimpse of responsibility, they have not lived up to the hopes that they are, essentially.
Right.
So, I really don't see Andy Reid stepping aside for that reason. Now, if you're going to ask me, is Andy Reid going to be the coach for Mahomes' entire career? No, absolutely not. He's not going to be the coach for Patrick Mahomes' entire NFL career. And again, I cite the health, And again, I don't say it to fat shame. I like Andy Reid. I respect him, but, I just wonder if he can make it to 70, 75, Because let's face it, he'd be in his late 70s by the time Patrick Mahomes retires. So.
True.
But again, I look at that coaching staff and I really just don't see anybody besides maybe Spagnuolo that could step up and be the head coach.
I don't know if a defensive-minded head coach would fit with Kansas City, but
but you look at the rest of the list, there's nobody that's really qualified to me. Bieniemy is qualified, but again, if he's calling the plays, I don't think I like it. And to me, he'd have to get those guys would have to get somebody experienced to call plays on offense that is not Bieniemy or Matt Nagy.
Who knows, maybe
Again,
Bieniemy and a head coach where he designates the play calling to somebody else. That could also happen too.
Yeah. If
you can
find someone as creative as Andy Reid or as aggressive as Sean McVay, by all means, delegate it. By the way, going off of coordinators getting hired, I'm not sure if you guys saw, Bill O'Brien is now the New England Patriots offensive coordinator once again.
Yeah, that didn't take long.
Yeah. Good for Mac Jones.
I figured that Matt Patricia would, go somewhere else or get fired or something like that.
I think he's still with the team. It's just he's not the... he's just not the offensive coordinator anymore. He's offensive line coach is what he's listed as. So he's taken a step down, basically.
What it seems like to me is just like Um, Belichick is willing to like do anything for Matt Patricia and having him have a job on the staff, which this seems so stupid. If that's going to be the case, designating him to like defense or something like that. Why is he on offense?
Well, last time he was offense was at Syracuse University, offense graduate assistant, and then of course 2004 with New England. In 2005 with New England, he was an offensive line coach. So I guess it works out. He was an offensive line coach during their big Super Bowl runs. So just he shouldn't be calling offensive plays.
I just, no offense to New England and Mac Jones, I just don't think that Mac Jones is that kind of guy to excel them, no matter who is their offensive coordinator. Do you ever think that maybe Mac Jones is more of the problem than Matt Patricia was?
Well, I think Bill O'Brien's about to put that to the test. And Bill O'Brien,
yeah, right?
Let's face it, Bill O'Brien's a good offensive mind. He's not exactly a guy who deserves a head coaching role, but he's a guy who's a good offensive mind and can honestly make decent enough play calls. So,
right.
And on top of it, he's worked with Mac Jones before, so I think that combo could be really good for Mac Jones' development. I mean, and let's face it, and before I get on to my final takeaway, the expectations for Mac Jones couldn't be any lower going into next season based on how he played this year. And the fact that he almost got benched for Bailey Zappi. So, I will just say that. I don't think the expectations could be any lower in terms of what Mac Jones could do.
Right.
So, with that, though, I want to get to my third takeaway, and I just want to mark the occasion. Of course, we are recording on Thursday. You guys are watching this on Sunday, but Thursday marked 3 years since the passing of Kobe and Gigi Bryant there. So, Kobe, Gigi, rest in peace. We miss you. Of course, we all love you.
Basketball world hasn't been the same since your passing.
Yeah. This world's been crazy. So, not really much else I want to say on that front, but I just wanted to say, rest in peace, Kobe, Gigi. Hope you're looking down. Hope you're proud of your family and everything they've done since. And, Kobe, of course, did a lot for women's sports. So, Kobe, great work with that. Let's kind of turn, I guess it's not going to be as much of a positive note, but Jason, it's time to talk what happened last Sunday. Hate to mention it.
Yeah, I do hate to mention it. Well, I figured maybe Buffalo would lose. I had a lot of high hopes that maybe Buffalo could have gotten to the championship game because reports were coming out that Micah Hyde was actually going to be available for the AFC Championship game if Buffalo was to win the game against Cincinnati, but unfortunately, we never got to see Micah Hyde this year. It's sad, because if we were to have Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer fully healthy against Kansas City, I think Buffalo could have beat Kansas City and Atlanta with two of their fully healthy safeties. But unfortunately, they fell short in a major, major way. Snow was coming down, but Buffalo's used to the snow. They're used to the cold weather. Cincinnati was just a better team. They came in, first two drives, they were just running down the field. Buffalo just could not stop Cincinnati's high-powered offense. And the defense was not any better. Buffalo's offensive line was not able to contain Cincinnati's defense. Josh Allen just had a very rough game. The only touchdown for the Buffalo Bills came on a Josh Allen rushing touchdown. There was slight hope in the second quarter that maybe Buffalo could get this game back in their favor. Third quarter, they were driving down the field, but didn't get a touchdown. I bet you if Buffalo went down and scored a touchdown right then and there, this game probably would have been a different story. Buffalo probably would have had momentum on their side. The defense probably could have gotten momentum, made this a game, but unfortunately only got 3 points and just couldn't stop Cincinnati whatsoever. Stephon Diggs, super frustrated during the game, yelling at Josh Allen. He's a competitor. I don't know if you saw the reports, but Stephon Diggs basically packed up all of his stuff from the locker room.
He tweeted as well. The next day, he tweeted as well saying, "You're expecting me to be okay with losing," and I could understand that tweet in the moment. And here's one thing Shannon Sharp said that for once I actually agree with on anything they say on Undisputed. But Shannon Sharp said, in the heat of the moment, if you lost to a team like the Texans, I could understand it. But you straight up got beat by a team that's better than you. Okay, this is just sour grapes. And this, to me, this is just rubbing salt in the wounds of what happened on Sunday.
Unfortunately, this is kind of the Stephon Diggs that teams were warning the Buffalo Bills about. Because Stephon Diggs, towards the last half of his time in Minnesota, of course, Buffalo is stuck with Stephon Diggs. They're not going to get rid of him. He signed a contract extension in the beginning of the season. If he didn't, he would be a free agent and probably the hottest free agent heading into the 2023 season. But unfortunately, Buffalo does not have to worry about re-signing Stephon Diggs as they did it before the season started, which I'm kind of grateful for, because if Buffalo didn't, then you have Poyer, Edmonds, Singletary, Diggs, all free agents you would have had to try to re-sign.
Yes.
And unfortunately, if you looked at all that, it could have gotten ugly. Yeah,
but
I agree.
But let's face it now, this is a PR nightmare for the Bills, what Stephon Diggs has done, because it goes against everything the Bills have preached. I think they need to get him to simmer down now.
Oh, I agree. But I do kind of like where Brandon Beane's coming from. He wants to have a lot of guys that are like that, that are competitors. Yeah. They're going to speak their mind and say that they don't want to lose.
Well, I'm glad to see that, but
I like the standpoint from what the GM has said.
I like that. But
it's a very bad image on Stephon Diggs and the Buffalo Bills, because what if you never get to the promised land? What if you never get to the Super Bowl? Then that looks bad on Stephon Diggs, because if you're going to be sour grapes, you never get to that championship game, then we're going to be talking about it in like a few years from here, and, well, I guess Stephon Diggs is going to try to ask for a trade again. See, that's the problem I'm running with Stephon Diggs, is I don't want him to be that kind of player.
But he's already sparked those rumors. That's the problem. He's already sparked those rumors. That's why, as your agent, as your PR rep for the Bills, you should have told him to just get rid of the phone and don't say anything.
Right.
Okay? Because now you just added fuel to a fire that didn't need to start in the first place.
No, I agree. Yeah, I mean, I'm not happy as a Bills fan losing either. It kind of gets a little frustrating. You get to the playoffs and you can't beat the good teams in the playoffs. But you look at them, how come? And then this is where I'm going to preach, and this is where I'm going to say this. How come? How the fuck can you beat these teams in the regular season, but when it gets to the fucking playoffs, you act like you're just another fucking team? It makes absolutely no sense to me, and it pisses me off.
No,
because... Go ahead.
If I may, we're looking at it from kind of the highest point in the magnifying, like the highest point in the microscope, like the highest resolution there. I think we need to zoom out just a little bit, because it's not just this game that the Bills, it's not just this game. They almost let the Dolphins beat them a week prior. Okay.
I know.
And let's back it up into December, too. Early January was not exactly their best stretch. Okay?
Oh, I agree.
It was brewing for a while, since really the bye week, except for a couple of rogue weeks where they were playing good. I don't know what happened.
Now, you want to know what happened? Losing Von Miller really f***ed up the team.
Yeah.
That's what happened, because Buffalo, ever since not having Von Miller out there, hasn't really had a pass rush. They were able to get to the quarterbacks. It's sad that one player makes a difference on the defense, but certainly did.
Let's zoom in on the offense now, because let's face it, and you knew there were going to be growing pains with the new offensive coordinator. You knew there were going to be growing pains, but and it shouldn't result in anybody losing their job, but it's things that are live and learn experiences. Of course, it didn't come to Brian Dable day one that this is how the offense needs to work. This is what's going to get us to the Super Bowl. It didn't come day one for Sean McDermott that we are the third best team back in 2016 or 17 when he was hired.
2017, yeah.
Look, it just comes down to Rome wasn't built in a day. But
I will say this now. I give Ken Dorsey a lot of credit because, he was already within the system. He was a quarterback's coach.
Yeah.
You know a lot about the offense already. So I do like that, they kept a guy that already knew how to work with Josh Allen and, know his strengths and weaknesses. I get it at the first time. I mean, at the beginning of the first half of the season was probably the best football that the Buffalo Bills were playing. I agree that after the bye week, the second half of the season wasn't really the greatest for Buffalo. They were struggling a lot. They were barely winning games. If they did win any games during that stretch, they were on like a 7-8 game win streak before that loss to Cincinnati. So, I mean, they were getting wins, but barely. I mean, this is a team that probably should have been dominating some of those teams that they beat.
I think we just need to stop looking at it as wins are wins, because let's face it, you got to look at the quality of the win, and it should have been alarming 5 weeks ago. It should have been alarming 6-7 weeks ago when they were barely beating teams that they should have beaten by 2 possessions, frankly. So our apologies, a little bit of an issue here, but I was just going to get to the point here, and I told you before we recorded, there's 2 sides of this. One is Rome wasn't built in a day. So this offense, with the new mind in charge of the offense, you knew it was going to be a growing pain. Now, on the flip side, this is your 3rd year in a row of being not only in the divisional round, but being really being a favorite to go to the AFC Championship.
I know. It's kind of the only time that Buffalo maybe looked good was during the season where there was barely any fans in the stands, and that's kind of sad.
Now, say what you will, I've been in this spot before. Keep in mind, I'm a Chargers fan since I really started watching football in the mid to late 2000s. If you recall, the Chargers, much like the Bills, dominated their division. They won it every year. Even if it wasn't in the most convincing fashion, they closed it out. Okay? They made the playoffs. Some years they had bye weeks. Other years they were the 3 seed. But they were teams that could have gotten to the championship round. Okay? And that was with Marty Schottenheimer and Norv Turner as our coaches. And every year we got beat down by New England or the Colts. Okay?
Right.
So this is essentially where the Bills are. Because now you can't help but drag out those comparisons.
I know.
Josh Allen is a Phillip Rivers now. But here's the key difference. Okay? We knew Norv Turner was not a good coach to begin with. Norv Turner was riding on the coattails of a good offense and a good defense. Okay.
Right.
Where Sean McDermott put in the work, he's built this team, And really, he runs it different than Norv Turner. He's a good coach through and through. But right now, to me, the second half of the year, they struggled with identity in terms of both sides of the football. They struggled with their identity.
I will say that, I really do think that going forward, Josh Allen has to know that he can't do everything by himself. He needs to put trust in his teammates, to help him out too.
But here's the thing. He needs to be... He's in the MVP final race there. But he's got to be that guy for 17 games. Not the first 7 and then dive off a cliff after that.
Right.
Okay. He just can't have that.
If there needs to be anything that needs to happen for Josh Allen, is to limit the turnovers going forward. If you don't have that play happening, either throw the ball out of bounds or run the ball.
Yeah.
Do something.
And let's face it as well. The wide receiver core below Diggs, and I'm sorry to say it, but it's just not there. Plain and simple.
Okay. It's not.
Everyone was riding high on Gabe Davis, but when it really mattered, he was nowhere to be found. Everyone was riding high on Isaiah McKenzie. He's not the guy. Cole Beasley bringing him back. Big mistake. I'm sorry. It was a big mistake to bring him back. They should have just left him in retirement where he belonged.
Honestly, it's sad that Shakir, who was a rookie, was looking better than Gabe Davis did. I will say Gabe Davis definitely shows out in the playoffs. But, yes, he had a slump. I mean, he looked good when he needed to in the regular season. If he was a little bit more consistent, I will agree that Buffalo would be able to compete a lot better.
They need to change their strategy. They need to stop drafting defense here. Now, I get this year they might have no choice if they lose these key pieces. But they need to look at wide receiver, too, and try to bolster that.
I say in the first round, you probably should bolster with a wide receiver, if not second round. But ultimately, you can kind of try to conclude this takeaway. So we shined some good light on it. After a couple of weeks, from the first game, the first matchup with Buffalo and Cincinnati, where he had cardiac arrest, taken in the hospital. We didn't know, what was truly going on. He was in critical condition. Well, he actually made an appearance between the Buffalo Bills and Cincinnati Bengals in the suites. Damar Hamlin was back in Buffalo, waving to the crowd. It was a super high roller coaster, a lot of emotions. I think the emotions, to be honest with you, I know Buffalo didn't play well in this game, but you definitely had to know that the emotions were running really high, and I think that the emotions got to them a little too much in this game.
Oh, absolutely. I think it was that as well, but to be honest, I think you just got to lean more toward Cincy was a better team, but nonetheless, having DeMar in the building, I think it's not just what the Bills needed, but what the Cincinnati Bengals needed.
Oh, I agree.
Okay, because, we look at one side of it, but Cincy had to witness this as well.
Yeah, they did.
People kind of neglect that Cincy had to watch this as well.
You're right. I bet you it was a weight off of T. Higgins' shoulders to see that he was up there and doing super well, because, he was having, nightmares of it as well as the Buffalo Bills were. But ultimately, I'm going to keep it going here. So after the game and everything like that, Buffalo, while they do make some changes for the coaching staff, not the one I maybe thought would have happened. Well, they they fired their safeties coach after the game. Makes me wonder if that was a good move, or maybe you should have done something with Leslie Frazier afterwards. I don't know. I mean, I don't see the whole relevance to getting rid of your safeties coach when he's the one that's been able to have his safeties being top of the NFL for the last few years. Yes, injuries plagued us. I mean, Hamlin being hurt, Micah Hyde being hurt, then Dean Marlowe being hurt during the game. Like, I don't think you fire your safety because we just couldn't keep safeties healthy. You would just look at it like that was kind of like a stupid thing to do. It's kind of like you're putting the blame game on somebody, and you decided to put the blame game on the safeties coach. If that was going to be the case, you should have put blame on Leslie frickin' Frazier because he's ultimately the defensive coordinator.
Yeah. But I don't think it needed to result in anybody getting fired. What I think it needed was kind of just going back and again, just reevaluation and maybe some more aggressive moves in this offseason, That's really all I got to say on it, is just it didn't need to be a scapegoat with a coach in this situation.
Right. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to see Buffalo doing a Von Miller, free agency signing. You're not going to see them going after a guy and signing him for a 6-year, $120 million contract. You're not going to see that. You're going to see them losing a few pieces. It's going to suck. I really do think that this team altogether, defensively wise, because a lot of the pieces are defensive. Yeah, honestly, I think losing Singletary is not going to be a bad thing.
I think they got a good running back in James Cook, and I think Hines is also pretty good. I really don't see a need for another running back in that equation right now.
To be honest with you, if I was a GM, in a sense, and this will be the last thing, I would probably keep Poyer over Edmonds. Yes, Edmonds had a good year too, but Milano kind of outweighs Edmonds, so I would be probably a little better off with getting another middle linebacker. But keeping Jordan Poyer with Micah Hyde heading into next season might be beneficial, because then you keep your secondary intact. You get Tre'Davious White probably fully healthy back.
You've got with the Bengals and the Chiefs, you've got to keep your secondary. Sorry.
Yeah, you got to keep your secondary. I think you're willing to lose Edmonds unless you can somehow get him on a tag. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's gonna be tough because they're like $14.5 million over cap, so it's gonna be rough who to keep and who to not. But that's all I'm gonna say. So going forward, I'm gonna probably kind of speed it up here since I don't know how much.
We want to keep it a little bit short.
Okay, so 2023 All-Stars have been announced. So for the West, the two captains are LeBron James and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Kind of figured, makes sense. But it's LeBron James, Stephen Curry, Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic, and Zion Williamson. I'm kind of shocked that John Morant got snubbed, but we'll leave that to a different discussion. And then you got Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and Donovan Mitchell. But what they're going to do different this year is that each captain will draft the players from each conference right before the game starts.
Oh, man. This is like backyard basketball right now.
I tell ya, usually they draft the teams beforehand, but why before the game? It absolutely makes no sense. So you're gonna have it? I think they're gonna have the draft at 7 o'clock, and then they're gonna have the game at 8 o'clock. So you mean to tell me that you have no time to prepare for, what teams are gonna be on? You're not gonna have any practice.
No incentive, though. There's no incentive for winning. That's the thing. It's not like baseball's all-star game where if you win it, your conference gets home field advantage.
Right. I don't know. Honestly, they just are dumbing.
I don't know. It's more entertainment than anything else. And if I want to see if I want to play backyard basketball, maybe I'll go to eSporta where I work out and just, sit on the court and hope to get drafted.
Yeah, right. All right. Well,
Spoiler, I won't be.
I mean, I literally thought that maybe the West and East were gonna compete against each other. Well, nope. I guess I was wrong. So I don't like the format because it's like each team has to win the quarter, and then it goes up to like 170 something points, which or 150. I think it's like 150 or 170. I can't remember, but it's up there point wise. But so going on to my last takeaway, we kind of shed some light on it, but Jordan Poyer's wife also shared on Twitter that it's been real in Buffalo these past 6 years. You made us feel like family. Depending on what happens to free agency, it's been real, y'all. They currently are in Florida. I think they have like a Florida home down in Miami or something like that. So what it seems like is that it doesn't seem promising for Jordan Poyer. They're in Florida waiting to see what happens in free agency. As a Bills fan, I would love to see him back because if you know anything about Buffalo, their secondary has been probably one of the strongest in the past 6 years, especially since Hyde and Poyer have joined the team.
I mean, you got to ignore the Mahomes and Burrow games because let's face it, I mean, that's just air raid all day. Like, regardless of who you could have the best secondary and they're still going to torch it. I mean,
I agree.
But, other than that, it's been a no-fly zone for a while.
I will say this now. Say if Buffalo was to keep Poyer, you get, Jordan Poyer, probably, fully healthy, no elbow or anything, bothering him heading into next year. You have Hyde, fully healthy, back from, the neck injury, or I think it was like a broken neck or something like that. You have Kyrie Alam, second year into that system. You have Tre'Davious White probably fully healthy. I think that knee would be a little bit better. I think he would be back to being probably another, back to being where he was with being sort of a shutdown corner. Sometimes he gets burnt. I mean, who honestly doesn't? I'm going to shed some light on Eli Apple, too. I don't know if you saw the tweets on him. He's a very arrogant player, and I don't like him. I don't like Eli Apple.
Mouth a lot for a guy who gets burned more than any other corner in the league.
I agree, but
corner in the league, I mean.
So it makes you wonder, and I have this question too: could Poyer come back, or will Buffalo try to cut back on players to free up some cap space and try to re-sign, or are they going to try to re-sign their free agents back?
It's gonna take a lot of work.
I would think you had to restructure a lot of contracts for something like that to happen too. I don't think Buffalo's gonna sign anybody flashy. They might, sign a lot of. If they do restructure some deals and get rid of some players, the only kind of flashy thing I could see is maybe if they trade for somebody, but I doubt that would happen. It'd be interesting to see. I think that Poyer would have to be the top of your list to try to bring back. And then you don't sign back Singletary, even though he had a lot better of a year this year than he has in the past. But if you could honestly be able to bring back Edmonds and Poyer, I say you would do that. It would have to be the top of your list. Losing Singletary, I don't think it's honestly as bad as it seems.
No. But But
Honestly, I think with that, it's time for an anchor break.
actually, why don't we just use that last break as an anchor break? Let's power through.
Sure. Okay.
So let's power through. Let's go into the rest of the NFL news. Of course, man, we won't have much to talk about NFL-wise in a couple weeks, but, well, in like 4 weeks, because we'll still have the Super Bowl to get through.
I mean, we'll possibly have XFL to talk about, though.
Hey, yeah. Well, I look forward to that, and I look forward to seeing what Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson does with that. But, we look ahead. Of course, we have our first head coaching hiring, and it is Frank Reich to the Panthers. Of course, there's a little bit of significance behind this. Of course, Frank Reich, he was Carolina's first ever quarterback. Of course, picked up in the expansion draft when Carolina joined the league. Frank Reich will replace Steve Wilkes, who went 6-6 in that time. And Frank Reich, for those who don't quite remember, was fired by the Colts for an ESPN analyst. So, you know, I guess I ask you what your thoughts are first before I give my thoughts on this.
I mean, personally, it's not... I don't know. It's tough to say because you look at Carolina's situation compared to Indianapolis's, and I mean, you got a young team that you can build around. I mean, the quarterback situation you have to figure out. I just don't know if I can see him having any success in Carolina. It might be the same thing with what happened in Indianapolis. You know, because you head into the season, you have what? Three quarterbacks, say. You have Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, and then you have one XFL guy there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, PJ Walker.
Yes. Personally, I would think he would probably choose Baker or Sam Darnold, if anything.
Well, he doesn't have Baker anymore. Baker's with the Rams.
Oh, that's right. Yes, that's true.
I mean, he'll have a chance to draft his own quarterback, which will be nice.
So, ultimately, if I'm Frank Reich, you would have to really excel in the draft and free agency to have any kind of success, or you're going to be back on the job market yet again.
I think he'll be fine. To be honest, I'm in between on this one. Now, I wanted Frank Reich to get a head coaching position again because, let's face it, the Colts... I think it would have been
better off with him being an offensive coordinator than a head coach, but...
No, I honestly think he was the right choice for Indy at head coach. But, you know, Jim Irsay's a complete dumbass. I can't say the other word, but he's a dumbass. I think that's about the nicest way I can put it that won't get us in trouble.
Right.
But he's a moron, okay?
Yes, I agree.
So, Frank Reich, of course, great coach, great offensive mind, and he fires him for a guy who's never even seen, you know, who's never coached in any professional or, you know, college rank. You know, Frank Reich won a damn Super Bowl with the Eagles. Okay, and a backup quarterback. Let's add into that equation. So, Frank Reich deserves a lot of credit for being a good coach in that respect. Because, let's face it, look at Nick Foles after that Super Bowl.
The problem is if Frank Reich, if he knew that he had Nick Foles and had success with him outside of Indianapolis, why didn't he go with him as a starting quarterback to begin with?
I don't know. Probably didn't have a choice because keep in mind the cap space as well in the contract that Nick Foles signed after all that.
No, I mean, I'm talking about Indianapolis, like this past season. You had him on the roster. I'm quite shocked.
Well, because he had Matt Ryan too, but...
Oh, yeah, true.
See, so... You know what? Indy's mistake is Carolina's gain, but...
I mean, really hoping that he had success in Carolina, but if you look at the team right now, it's unless he goes out and really has a great goes out and get a lot of good players to build around that team, I just don't know if I can say that he's going to be very successful in Carolina.
Now, I just want to finish my point here, okay? Sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but...
No, you're fine.
So, on the flip side, I don't like... You're saying, I think Frank Reich deserved the job. He deserved a job. I don't think he deserved this one. Okay?
No, definitely.
Only because Steve Wilkes kept this team in contention all year. Steve Wilkes, you know... Let's face it, Tom Brady is probably leaving this division at the end of the season.
Right.
So, you really had a chance with Steve Wilkes of winning this division. Now, I get it, Steve Wilkes is not the best coach in the world. But he's a guy who's proven, he's proven he can win in this division. He's proven he's had the players' support. I don't see why you get rid of him in that situation. I think, honestly, this was, as much as it's Carolina's gain for Indy's mistake, it's also Carolina's mistake to have gotten rid of Steve Wilkes. So, of course, Steve Wilkes' lawyers are preparing a little bit of a issue themselves. If you remember Brian Flores last year. It appears we're headed back in that direction again. So, hey, you gotta call it for what it's worth. I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do. That's my ultimate thing. I mean, I do see some of the issues, and I think, Steve should have gotten that job, but...
No, I agree because, he had success with that squad. Yeah, I mean, maybe not the best kind of record, but still kept the team in contention.
Exactly. So,
if you're a team, you look at a guy that has a little, if you're going for a head coach, and if you look at Frank Reich, who's got coaching experience, you kind of, that kind of outweighs it more than the other. And it's not about race or religion or anything like that. It's just because Frank Reich has been a head coach. He's got the experience. He's done what it needs to be done to lead the team to a Super Bowl. Not saying that he's going to do that at Carolina. I don't know. I mean, anything could happen.
I think he can lead them to the playoffs. I think that's a good enough start, is that he'll lead them to the playoffs. But again, I think Steve Wilkes should have kept this job. That's my personal view.
Honestly, I really do think that Frank Reich should have either been a head coach somewhere else, or
Frank Reich could have fit with the Cardinals.
What's
the other team that's looking? I mean, Denver was looking.
Houston,
but I think Arizona was the best fit for him, whether it was offensive coordinator or head coach.
It'll be interesting to see who goes for the Arizona job. But
I'm hearing
sorry.
I'm hearing there's one guy that's not going to get a second interview, and we'll talk about it in a bit. But I think we got to skip to Nathaniel Hackett real quick because he's got a new job, and he is now the offensive coordinator of the Jets. Now, you may sit here and laugh and say, how the hell does this guy have another job? Mind you, Nathaniel Hackett's had some pretty good offenses. Now, excluding Aaron Rodgers in those seasons that, the NFC ran through Lambeau, Nathaniel Hackett had a top 5 offense in Jacksonville's playoff run that year with Blake Bortles at quarterback. I think that shouldn't go under the radar. So this could be a very interesting hire for the Jets.
Yes and no. It depends on who they have as quarterback heading into the season. I think that's what outweighs it than not.
No.
Because, okay, and this is where I think after the kind of season he had with Denver, it's like it throws the question in the air because you have Russell Wilson, who was a MVP quarterback, has won a Super Bowl, has been in a couple Super Bowls with Seattle, and then he comes to Denver, and where was that a great offense with him? You give him weapons, you give him offense, and you don't have that kind of success with Russell
He
Wilson,
also
and then
wasn't given a chance. He also
yeah,
wasn't really given an
true.
opportunity. Yeah, ultimately, he was scapegoated for Russell Wilson's poor play, is what it was.
I will say this now. I mean, New York was in playoff, contention, even with
Now,
Mike LaFleur as their offensive coordinator. Now you look at Nathaniel Hackett. I mean,
now,
it might be great. It might not be. Well, sorry, go ahead.
sorry, I'll let you finish, and then I'll say what I got to say.
It'll be interesting because, you look at the quarterbacks you got. I would think that Joe Flacco is probably not going to be with the team after this year. But if you look at Mike White, you look at Zach Wilson, and say if you bring in a veteran, it'll be interesting. One, who's going to be really the starting quarterback heading into the next year. I would think that's probably going to be Zach Wilson more than not. But he hasn't really excelled in his offense. You bring in Nathaniel Hackett, and then he has to make that decision of who is going to be my guy? Who am I going to have build an offense around? And you have a very young team too. Yes, they had success. I mean, you'll probably get Breece Hall back fully healthy. You'll have Garrett Wilson. You'll have whoever you have.
Robinson in the backfield too, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of variety of plays that Nathaniel Hackett, or what kind of offense he has with the Jets. I'd say that maybe the Jets can have success. I mean, they had success this year. I think they can build off of it. But if they don't, you might look into seeing Robert Saleh probably being on the job market, to be honest with you. Unfortunately.
Now the Jets are only $2 million below. That should be of note. But can I just say that this could very well... Now, of course, the Stephon Diggs thing I said is going to fuel fire. But can I say this might just fuel the fire for Aaron Rodgers to the Jets? I think this just poured gasoline on it. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but I think it poured gasoline on it.
Personally, I don't know how I feel about it because
I mean,
he's played in the NFC for so many years. To see him jump conferences from NFC to AFC, I mean, it could work. I mean, but the thing is then you're going to end up having the whole runaround is, could the Jets afford his contract, one, and two, would he have success with very young wide receivers? I mean, he kind of did, kind of didn't in Green Bay, but with the kind of talent he has in New York, I mean, I just don't know if I could see him having that kind of success he has and had in Green Bay, to be honest with you. But if you look at it, then he would be kind of leading. His path would be very reminiscent to Brett Favre's if he was to go to New York, if you think about it, which would be kind of hilarious to see.
Yeah.
What's going to happen? He's going to be there a year, and then he's going to end up in Minnesota afterwards?
Just be careful with the welfare. I'm sorry. I had to make that joke again. But it's going to add fuel to the fire, I think. And on top of it, of course, we know Robert Saleh has said he's committed to Zach Wilson at quarterback. Now, that's a hill you're going to ride and die on, because that could very well put your job at stake next year.
That's what I'm saying.
So, I think Hackett's a good hire. I think now that he has a little less on his plate, not being a head coach, I think this is something that could pay off. I think this is something that could put the Jets in that spot for the playoffs, I think it could put them maybe in the 6th spot next year, because I think they were that team that should have been there but just didn't finish it out.
Well,
And again, because it was the question at quarterback the second half of the year. I feel like once you eliminate that question mark, now it could be... well, here's the thing. It's going to be a 2-team race in the AFC East with the Dolphins and the Bills. But I think now you add in the element of a surprise with the number 3 in the Jets. Because then I feel like you don't know what you're getting. So, it could be a hidden thing.
I mean, that could happen, too.
But, can I point this out? So, we know Sean Payton, he is going to be, or we know the Saints, if Sean Payton comes back this year or next year, they will receive massive compensation for any team that wants Sean Payton's coaching. Sean Payton has interviewed with a few teams. He has not been scheduled for a second interview with any team so far. Now, mind you, the Saints will at bare minimum get a first rounder for Sean Payton. Okay. Could it be possible that these teams just don't want to give him the compensation, or give the Saints the compensation to buy out his contract? And that's why he's not going to get a head coaching position.
I mean, well, he's still under Fox, too. Thing is that I saw something that would be interesting to say that, like, oh, it'd be cool to see, like, Brady and Sean Payton pairing with each other, and then Sean Payton literally said, well, the only kind of pairing I can see is if, we end up together on Fox, which is probably more so not truer than not. But personally, if I'm a GM, I wouldn't give away a first rounder just to bring in a head coach.
I mean, I said at the beginning of the offseason, the Cardinals are in the best position to do so. Okay, the Cardinals are in a position to do so right now. They really got a team that's ready to go. But, at the same time, maybe they're just saying, you know what, there are good coaching candidates out there. We can sign them, and if 2 years down the road Sean Payton's still available, hell, we can reach out and get him then. Because they're going to have Kyler Murray 2 years down the road. So I feel like maybe that's what teams are saying is, we're not paying the price now, and we're not going to give the Saints this pick. And keep in mind, I mean, if it's a first rounder from Arizona, it's going to be a high pick. I mean, you'd be...
Well, the problem is that with Arizona, Kyler Murray, tore his ACL kind of super late into the season. So I don't know if he's going to be available for the beginning of next season. So if you do somehow bring in Sean Payton, will they... And if you give up a first-round draft pick, that kind of sucks, because that could make or break helping the team out. Then you look into the second round, and do you possibly, bring in another quarterback, or do you, get another playmaker, like another wide receiver, another defensive guy, because you would have to replace, J.J. Watt. You would have to get another defensive end because, he retired. And then it makes you wonder what you would need to do to help this team out, because you're probably not going to have Kyler Murray for the beginning of the season. And then you would probably either have to get somebody in free agency or draft another quarterback to possibly...
Now, not necessarily draft. They do have $15 million in cap space. Jimmy G is going to be available. Gardner Minshew's potentially going to be available. you know,
Because if you look at it, say if you don't go out and grab another quarterback in free agency or in a draft, then your starting quarterback probably for the beginning of the year is what, Colt McCoy?
and he's too injury prone. He's gotten too old, unfortunately. That he's just
So
injury prone. So, you know,
I
there's
don't get
Tom
why
Brady, but Tom Brady's not going there.
I honestly don't get why Arizona doesn't take the risk. I think they might be the only team that would be willing and be able to do it and still have success because he's somebody that could bring in pieces and help this Arizona team heading into the Super Bowl or being a perennial playoff juggernaut in maybe the NFC, to be honest with you. But
now, mind you, Taylor Heineke's available. I think he's going to be one to watch this offseason. Let's see. Cooper Rush is going to be available. And Cooper Rush, I think his stock just went up after this past weekend. You know, Sam Darnold's going to be available. Baker's going to be available. Jimmy G. You know, I think those are guys that are going to have high stock going into this offseason. Frankly, even Mike White. Mike White's also a free agent this offseason. So there's a lot of free agent quarterbacks. You have $15 million in cap space, and God knows what you're going to clear out if and when you trade D-Hop away. So, again, I mean, it works in the Cardinals' favor. But I don't think there's too much fear if Kyler Murray's not ready to go, because I feel like you could get a quality backup on a one-year deal, and just kind of patchwork and make it work. Start the year.
Right.
But that said, I wouldn't be shocked if teams wait till the end of the 2024 season to seriously consider Sean Payton.
It might be beneficial because then you don't have to give up a first rounder.
Yeah. Sucks for Saints fans, but we move on. Let's make our picks for championship weekend here. And we start with the Eagles and the 49ers. The Philly is favored by 2.5.
I'm going to say, I would honestly go with the upset. I think the 49ers are going to upset the Eagles on the road here and get the Super Bowl bid for the NFC.
You got to wonder, though, if Brock Purdy's magic is just running out here. And unfortunately, I think it's going to, because let's face it, you know, as much credit as the 49ers defense deserves, because they are without question the best in the league. You can't discredit the Philadelphia Eagles defense because, I mean, Fletcher Cox and company have just been unbelievably good. So, and that said, Jalen Hurts as well has been, frankly, Jalen Hurts, I said earlier this year, deserves MVP, and I think I'm going to stand by that statement, and I think he proves it today. He proves it today. I think the Eagles will win.
I just don't know if I see that happening, to be honest with you. Because MVP is such a stats-wise award. So, yeah.
Boy, these
odds. It wouldn't shock me if Philadelphia does get in it. I've been saying Philadelphia all year. I just think that game against the Giants was just too easy for them. I just don't see that happening against San Fran. I think this is going to be a very low-scoring defensive game between both teams. So,
yeah. Bengals and Chiefs, and the odds kind of changed here. I think the Bengals were favorites early, but now the Chiefs are favored by 1.
Sorry, Line, but you're wrong. It's going to be the Chiefs. Chiefs and My goal is either Chiefs and Eagles, or Bengals and Eagles, or Bengals and 49ers. I'm going to say the Bengals come into Arrowhead and do exactly what they did last year and beat Patrick Mahomes in Arrowhead.
Mm-hmm. I can see it.
Because if you outweigh, Kansas City didn't look all that great against Jacksonville. If you look at Cincinnati, they went to Buffalo and creamed the Bills. I think they can. I wouldn't say they're going to cream Kansas City. I think it's going to be a lot closer than the Bills and Bengals game. But I think Burrow is Joe Cool for a reason. He's going to go in there, be poised. He's done it before. He can do it again. He's going to do it again. He's going to get back into the Super Bowl. And I think this is the year that Cincinnati wins it all.
This is my message to the Bengals, though. Chill the hell out with this Burrowhead jokes and, all this, Kansas City bashing this week, because you're just adding fuel to the fire, okay? Because if you don't think the Chiefs are going to come out with a fire lit under them going into this game, you've got another thing coming to you. You got to stop sleeping on the Chiefs, okay? And that said, I do think the Bengals win this game. I will say, and this is if the same Bengals team that showed up in Buffalo shows up in Kansas City. Because, man, I'm telling you, the Chiefs were MIA last weekend. They were MIA.
And to note, it will be very interesting to see how hurt Patrick Mahomes will be heading into this game, too. Because I think that ankle is a lot more damaged than people think that it is. He was hobbling. He looked very, disorganized after getting hurt there. He looked like he couldn't put any weight on the ankle, even after it was heavily taped. So I think it's gonna but then again, we thought the same thing with the turf toe with him a few years back, and then ended up doing it. So who really knows? But I think this is different. I think that
ankle's a little bit more serious.
Yes, I agree.
But again, I don't know. I
really think that Cincinnati is going to make Mahomes' day a living hell. I think he's going to have to try to move out of the pocket, and because of the ankle, he's not going to be able to. I think you're going to see him probably taking quite a bit of sacks in this game against Cincinnati. If Cincinnati's defense from last week is anything to tell, I think they're going to get to the Mahomes. I think that Mahomes is going to make some mistakes in this game. I'm going to have to go with Cincinnati here. And I think the defense is going to be the reason why they win this game.
Yeah, all right. So that's our picks. I did say Cincinnati as well. But let's get on to Tinkle on this. And I don't know if this is much of a Tinkle on this, but Shannon Sharp did get tossed out of the...
Oh yeah, I that's right. I was gonna think of that when I saw that video. I was gonna message you and be like, "Hey, I think this is a Tingle on this recipient."
But I think honestly, I don't know if you saw Shaq, but he had the baby curls on his head a couple days ago.
Yes.
Shaq, this is why you stay bald. But I get it. It was probably one of those fake hair attachments, but man, Tinkle on this. Actually, probably Tinkle on it. It probably will create a better hairstyle than what you had. But anyway, real quick, what's coming up on No Final Bell this week is Out of Turn 4 is going to return as well.
Well, Warner Media finally did the right thing and had a tribute show for Jay Briscoe. Sadly passed away in a serious car crash. He wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Collided head on. His daughters were in the car. His one daughter, well, she's still alive, but We thought maybe she would be paralyzed, didn't have any feeling in her legs. But good news has come out that she's after having surgery, she's got full mobility back in her legs. So congratulations. Oh, that's good news there. But it was very emotional to see Mark Briscoe go out there with both ROH titles. He was able to get the win against a former rival, a friend, a brother, and Jay Lethal in Lexington, Kentucky. So that whole night just felt emotional. It was a great high-powered match, but definitely outweighs with Mark Briscoe going up against Jay Lethal. It was about time. Of course, the Briscoes are 13-time World Tag Team Champions of ROH. To my knowledge, the only tag team that has won that many titles for one promotion alone. I don't think any other tag team has done that. So, but yeah, it's sad to say. And then also, Great Muta, you had a great run with Pro Wrestling Noah, great wrestling run. It's come to an end. Got a victory in his last match, so that's about it for No Final Bell. Of course, we'll talk more about it. Rampage, of course, you were recording this on a Thursday. Rampage hasn't happened yet, but we'll talk about both AW Rampage and Dynamite, and probably also the tribute show for Jay Briscoe, which was over a 3-hour show. Had some matches on there, talked about the life of Jay Briscoe, so we'll be talking about that on No Final Bell.
Yeah. And we look forward to that, of course. Coming up on Out of Turn 4, it'll be Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern to get you prepared for the NASCAR season and with the Clash picks. Tony Stewart's in the booth for the 500. Elio Castroneves, is he going to race? Is he not? We'll find out. And, of course, we're going to get you caught up on all the off-season news that occurred. So it's going to be quite a lengthy episode. And we can't wait to bring it to you again. That'll be 7 p.m. Eastern Saturday. It'll be only this week on Saturday. It won't be going forward on Saturday. But both shows will be on YouTube and Facebook Watch. We hope you will watch them. I'm off to bed because, let's face it, I got to do inventory all day Sunday. So please, guys, pity me because I'm kidding. Feel sorry for me because I can't watch any championship games. I'm only kidding. But anyway, we'll see you all next week. Until then, goodbye, everyone.